guys, how's it going? Kevin Cleary here with a knife video for you and a bit of a discussion. This is a really cool knife from SOG, and I honestly didn't imagine myself ever saying that. I know I'm belaboring that particular point, but honestly, I was done with SOG. Like I was like, yeah, whatever. We'll relegate it to the discount store, mass appeal, non-knife guy, knife company. And we need those kind of knife companies. There are lots of people who don't know or care anything about knives, and they need to buy a handy folding knife as well. But then the last couple of years, SOG has completely reversed course and done a lot of really cool stuff, including this. And I have to say, this one stands out to me for a couple of reasons. The big one is the action and the overall sort of approach and the construction of this. That I think is a huge win. The other reason this stands out to me is a number of you guys mentioned this knife to me in comments on Facebook, on Messenger, in messages, because you're right to say that this knife is definitely a Kevin Cleary type of knife. It's big and beefy and hand filling and tough, and so all of those things are things that I tend to appreciate in a knife. So I was finally able to get my hands on one through Justin over at White Mountain Knives. I don't think he has any in stock at the moment, nor do I think Southern Edge Knife Works has any in stock, but please keep checking those channel sponsors. Use my discount code SHARPSTUFF. That's a big help to the channel. Makes a big difference in what I'm able to get, how quickly I'm able to get it, and how costly it is for me to get my hands on stuff. So thanks again for using those discount codes. You get to win and I get to win. So it's a great situation. Now, big beefy knife, as I was saying, 9 inches overall, and I'm excluding the roughly 1/4 inch impact tool down here, 3 7/8 on the blade, so almost 4 inches, 5 9/16 close, so over 5.5 inches. And again, that's excluding the sort of impact tool on the grip there. The grip area is huge here. Tons and tons of real estate there. Full 4 inches of grip area, which is quite nice and quite comfortable, which, that's something I really like to see. Now, this knife is heavy. All right, 8.25 ounces. So pretty hefty knife. You're definitely going to notice this if you are carrying it in pocket. Like, this is one of the few knives where if I've got it on my person, you can notice it. I only really have one other knife that that I'm actively aware of when carrying it, and that is the 4MAX, which I'll bring in here just for a second. We have done a full comparison between these two, and I'll bring it in at the end as well. So just wanted to throw that. This is the only other knife that I actually notice when carrying. All right, so big hefty knife, but if you need something like this, if you want something like this, you're happy to deal with that weight. All right, the blade is coated S35 VN. I've got to give a lot of credit to SOG here. It is really nice and thin behind the edge, like 15 thousandths behind the edge, which means even though this crazy blade stock, it's not quite 1/4 inch thick, but it's a little over 3/16. So this is a big, hefty, beefy blade, and being that thin means that this will actually cut stuff. And that's such a welcome surprise. I can't tell you how many times I've had knives on the channel. I've tried out knives and just ended up being super disappointed because they wouldn't cut well. So let me, this might be too tall to demonstrate. Let me cut it once off camera and then bring it over here. So there you go. So here's some cardboard. You can see this bites right into that cardboard pretty easily. Oh, knocking over the tripod. I have to say, I'm very impressed with how this knife cuts. Now, are you going to be slicing a bunch of apples up and using it in the kitchen? No, but it was never designed for that. So it's a little unfair, I think, for me to criticize. The fact is that we've got a big beefy blade here that still cuts exceptionally well, and that is truly impressive. It is coated S35 VN steel, and the coated blade is I don't like coated blades in general. You'll notice that most of my blades are satin, and that's because if they do scratch, like a satin blade, it may get a scratch on it, but the scratch is barely noticeable because it matches what's already on the knife. With this, when this gets scratched up and beat up, and you can see, let's see, some slight marking from use, but it's held up really, really well. Okay, just want to point that out. Okay, so despite the fact that it's held up really well, you still have a black coating over steel. And eventually, with enough wear and tear, it's going to get beat up and it's going to really show that wear. And there's not much you can do to fix it. You know, at least with a satin blade, you could essentially repolish, refinish the whole blade if you wanted to, but that option really is not available when it's got a black coating on it, or not easily available. All right, so that's my only real issue with the blade. Let's go ahead and talk about the action, because that's a big story here. So this has the XR lock and it is phenomenal. It fires fast, it fires hard, it's super enjoyable to fidget with. The only challenge, the only thing that I don't love about the action on this knife is we've got this nice blade hole here, which immediately to me says, hey, you should spider flick this, but you can't. The detent is just too stiff for me to be able to spidey flick this. I can thumb roll it, but I have to put quite a bit of pressure behind that. And even then, it's definitely not easy. So I could handle the detent being softened up just a little bit. All right, just enough that I could spidey flick the knife would be really, really welcome. Otherwise, though, the action is phenomenal. It is on bearings, and I know not everyone loves that in a hard use knife. I'm kind of over that. I've had a bunch of knives on bearings, a bunch of knives without bearings, and guess how many I've ever had issues with opening when I needed to open them? None. Okay, so yeah, I still bring it up as a talking point because I'm so trained to do that, but I actually find that it doesn't matter all that much. All right, so now the action is great. It's just that detent is too stiff for me to spidey flick the knife, and I kind of wish that I could. Lastly, let's talk about this handle. The handle construction, we've got these stainless steel liners, stainless steel backspacer, and impact tool. Movable clip, okay, so this is a fully ambidextrous knife, which will be welcome to many of you. I do get some complaints from lefties from time to time. Now, the handle is FRN, which I don't love. I would have liked to see G10 here. People, the FRN has the advantage that you don't have to mill it, which makes the construction cheaper, but this is not a cheap knife. So I feel like there was definitely room there to go to G10 and just do this, what I would consider to be the right way. As it stands, it's still fine. It just doesn't feel quite as good as it would if this were G10. All right. Not a huge complaint, other than the fact that this is an expensive knife. And so essentially, like SOG they cheaped out on this, and they shouldn't have, because they're not charging a cheaped out type of price point. All right. So by the way, I strongly suspect that SOG has higher profit margins than other companies, and that's why they're not willing to go G10 here, where Cold Steel or something would have just gone G10 and still charged, $30 less for the knife. Back to my discussion. The handle is comfortable in hand. It does have a ton of jimping, so much jimping, it's incredible. It's not uncomfortable for some light cutting tasks, but if I was going to do a lot of work with this, I would probably want to wear gloves. If I was, I don't know, in a survival situation outdoors and I was going to do, camp prep and wood processing and trap building and all kinds of stuff that require, long-term use of the knife, that could potentially be uncomfortable. All right, so that's really, there's not much else to say about the handle. Let's go ahead and get to some comparisons. You kind of now know what I feel about every part of the knife. Let's adjust things just a little, there we go, and get into a few comparisons. The obvious one to me anyway, and the closest competitor for pocket time, is the 8010, and I do like the 8010 better than this. It's a little more comfortable, it's a little lighter, and otherwise it's just as good at everything. So for me, that makes a big difference. Now the price point is about the same these days, although I think you can still find the 8010s sometimes on Amazon for sort of a budget price point. Let's throw in the Spyderco Amalgam. Again, a big knife meant for slightly harder use on bearings with a flipper. The action, it's like you just can't get all the things right. So the action on the Spyderco, in this case, the detent is a little soft rather than a little hard. Neither one of them I consider like just a failure. Neither one of them do I consider like, oh, it's not a viable or usable knife. I still love both of those knives and still recommend them easily. Moving on, lastly is going to be the Formax. Now, here's the thing. The Formax is pretty expensive, so if you want something big and beefy and heavy duty, the SOG is a great option. If you're looking at a Formax, I think the SOG is a reasonable alternative. Perhaps not as good an alternative as the 8010, but if you want just the unmitigated, insane tank of the knife world, right? That's the Formax. The SOG doesn't quite get there, all right, even though it's still quite big and quite heavy. Not too many other comparisons there because this is sort of a slightly different class of knife. The Recon 1 is another good option that you might want to look at, though. I don't have one with me, but I'll at least give it a mention there. So overall, what do I think about this knife? I enjoy this knife quite a lot. The blade is nice. It's thin for its size, and of course its build. A lot of times companies who are making a heavy-duty, hard-use knife, they blow it here. They think they have to be super thick behind the edge for toughness, and then they make a knife that won't cut, which is insane because it's a knife. All right. It's a little tactical for some, no doubt. I'm sure some people will look at this and go, yeah, that's a little too mall ninja for me. But if you like this, and I like it, I like this design a lot. I'm happy to wear the mall ninja label if you want me to. It's a really nice looking knife. It's really well done. And the big thing about this is I think it proves that SOG can do a great job. And my dream would be that they take this build and do a few other models. Specifically, yeah, one of my favorite recent SOGs is the new SOG Flash. And if they did this same build with the SOG Flash, that would be amazing. And so hopefully SOG would do that, or at least something similar. So something similar to this, maybe a little bit lighter, a little bit smaller, or various other models. I think they definitely have a winning combination with the whole action on this knife and the overall build of it. So I hope to see a bunch of SOGs that are built in a similar way because this is really, really good. Thanks a lot for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. We will talk to you soon.